So the building that we're in here was built in two parts originally for Breckenridge, as it really grew to be more of a stable population, I guess, with the mining booms and busts that happened. And then in 1909, they built the front half of this building, which is kind of along the top of the T. And then in 1921, the back half was added. So where we're sitting right now was in the basement of that 1921 addition, and I'm actually sitting in the deep end of the swimming pool. It's been a lot of things to the town since it was built originally. The school stayed here until the early 60s. At that point, the town repurposed the building as town hall. The sheriff's office was here, the fire department was here, quite a few different town organizations. It's been a lot of things through the years, and it's fun that it's coming back to a community use that'll, serve everybody here in Breckenridge and Summit County in different ways. I've had a lot of people joke with me in my time up here that this is probably the only chance that I'll have in my career to build a library that has a movie theater in the basement. And so that, of course, is one of the biggest things that has driven the need for quite a bit of acoustic work in the building.
On this project, Innovative is essentially an acoustical specialty contractor. We're doing the wall and ceiling finishes for acoustical absorption in a variety of rooms. As the plans started to come together, we came to the realization that A, they need a ton of acoustical, and B, nothing's square, nothing's rectangular. We really can't count on anything to be necessarily plumb, so to try to do a pre-manufactured anything was not going to be the way to go. The reason why Eurospan makes a lot of sense, walls and ceilings on this project, is that we build it to the condition. If the wall is out of square, or a great example is upstairs where we had 100 and some bays that all varied by 1/4 inch wide. So whereas we're creating the panels in place to exactly the space that we're covering, it's a huge advantage. Much faster, looks much better, crisper details, better corners, less expensive, and really better suited to what they were doing. So there's really nothing that it doesn't do better than prefabs, especially when it's a challenging situation like this. The installation process for Eurospan typically starts with the drywall surface, whether it's a wall or a ceiling. At that point, you define your layout, where you want your joints, if you have joints, what fabric you're going to use. That'll dictate how wide your joints are, the basic stuff. You then put the track system up. That defines your area of work. Typically, the track mounts directly to drywall. If you have a drywall wall or ceiling, that's ideal. It's fast, and it goes on staple gun, off you go. You then infill it with the acoustical core. The fiberglass board usually mounts with screws. Usually we cut it tight enough. There is a flange on the track to sort of keep the edges snug. Someone who knows what they're doing, that'll be very snug. The edge will keep itself down, and then we'll run a few in the middle just to make sure it's not going to flare out. And then once the job is clean, you don't have dust issues anymore, which is what we'll be waiting on here, then you come in and tuck your fabric into it. When it comes to can lights, sprinklers, diffusers in mid-ceiling, you stretch the fabric across and just sort of tack it and figure out where those, feel around and figure out where they are. And it's literally a matter of cutting a pinhole, trying to work it over the obstruction, cutting a little larger. Obviously a can light's can end up being a bigger hole than a sprinkler. But regardless, you're looking for a hole in the fabric that's just somewhat smaller than the obstacle you're trying to go around, so that when you do put it around it, there is tension on that fixture. If the hole is cut in remotely correct, you won't see it bunching up around that stuff. When you get to larger obstructions, like like the diffusers in this room, the big 2x2s, we will typically staple that fabric to maintain its tight look, and then their cover plate or flange will come up and hide where those staples are.
16 months after we started, we finally got everything all set here in Breckenridge. We had a big grand opening on Saturday. More than 1,000 people came to see the new building, and everybody was really excited about how it turned out.
You know, we definitely had the A-team on that job, and they, I don't know what to say. I mean, they just never disappoint.
A lot of people didn't know that there was any acoustic material even there, especially our really high ceilings. We custom matched the paint to match the white fabric, and so looking at that from 20 feet down, it's hard to tell that there's even acoustic material up there, but you can tell in the room it's doing its job.
Everybody asks, well, what did you guys do? And I said, well, we did the stuff you can't see. You know, it looks like drywall, but on the other hand, it took it from sounding like a racquetball court to sounding like a library.
Everything worked really nicely, and I was actually surprised about how flexible the material was. Initially, not having worked with it before, I wasn't sure how light fixtures would work, or ceiling grills and registers, and they were able to make everything really snug, and the finish turned out, I think, really nice. Well, of course, the theater that we're standing in is probably one of the most high-tech pieces of the building, or rooms in the building. The acoustic ceilings and walls, and even beyond the interior acoustics, the acoustic isolation that the room has.
The speakeasy has ceiling and wall. So they were able to play with colors on the walls. It was a 4-inch system, obviously incredibly absorptive. That room went from, you know, concrete walls and a concrete floor and absolutely unlivable to, they can do anything with it now, from music to movies to whatever they'd like to do. And visually, yeah, it's beautiful.
I think that Eurospan did save us time. The fact that the acoustic crews could come in, set the track and set the backing, get, you know, 80% of the way there, and then we could wait until we had an area of the building or a room cleaned up and free of dust and construction traffic before the final fabric was stretched. As a general contractor who does a lot of historic and unique projects, I would definitely recommend Eurospan as something for a project that requires that flexibility and adaptability, and still a very clean, modern, finished final product.